Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our California Wildfire webinar. My name is Hallie Frazee. I'm the Wildfire Communications Manager here at Pacific Power, and today we're going to be talking to you about our California Wildfire Mitigation Plan. Before I get started, just a few housekeeping items. We will be recording this session, and it will be posted to our Pacific Power website and our Pacific Power YouTube in the coming days. We do have a planned Q&A portion after our main presentation. If you could please drop your questions into the chat as part of the meeting, that would help us make sure we can get to as many questions as possible. Right now, all of our participants are muted and mics are off just to avoid any distractions during the presentation. So as we get started, I'd just like to introduce you to Melissa Swinson. She is our Director of Wildfire Mitigation Program Delivery here at Pacific Power, and she will be walking us through our presentation today. So if we can go to the next slide, and I'm going to hand it over to Melissa.
Great, thanks, Hallie. Hey, welcome and good afternoon, everybody. We can go to the next slide there. My name is Melissa Swinson, as Hallie said, and I'm the Director of Wildfire Mitigation Delivery at Pacific Power. And thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about our Wildfire Mitigation Plan in California. Today, we'll start off by reviewing the company's plan development and journey, and then dive into the plan itself, touching on some key elements such as our approach to wildfire mitigation, how we identify areas of heightened wildfire risk in our service area, how we apply what we know about these areas for situational awareness, operational practices, and system strengthening and resiliency, how we communicate with customers about our operational practices, and how we work with our public safety partners. So I will be speaking at a high level today, so I encourage you to review the plan itself for more information, and that is on our website. So next slide, please. So you can see from the slide that Pacific Power has been submitting wildfire mitigation plans in California since 2019. And our 2025 plan is an update to our 2023 through 2025 wildfire mitigation plan. And we've received draft approval of this 2025 update from the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. And then looking ahead, in July, Pacific Power will submit a 3-year wildfire mitigation plan for 2026 through 2028. So we're actively working on building that plan right now. So next slide, please. And Pacific Power's approach to wildfire mitigation begins with the 3 broad categories that are shown at the top of the slide: situational awareness, operational practices, and system strengthening and resiliency. And then the principle that engagement with our stakeholders, like all of you, is a key component of delivering in these 3 areas. So situational awareness helps us understand where the risk is across our service area and our equipment right-of-ways. And Pacific Power does this in 2 primary ways: long-term and short-term risk modeling. The long-term risk modeling, which we also call our baseline risk modeling, combines 30 years of historic weather and fire data with advanced simulations to highlight areas of concern. Our baseline risk modeling helps us understand that should there be an ignition, there are characteristics of historic and geographic data which indicate it could have a significant impact on an area. This view of risk modeling can inform where the areas of high fire risk are. And this supports our program strategy, such as where to focus our expedited inspection finding corrections, or where to do vegetation management more frequently, as well as where our hardening efforts should occur. Pacific Power utilizes a short-term risk modeling approach to complement that long-term view, and that's performed by the meteorology team every day to generate a daily risk forecast that goes out for the next 5 days. And that short-term view is very much of when you think of what is the weather going to be like this week. Is it going to be hot, dry, and windy, and where? Or is it like it is outside my window today, cloudy with a chance of showers? And then what are the conditions of the fuels on the ground, like the grasses, the trees, the needles on the trees? Do they have a lot of moisture, or are they dry? And those short-term risk modeling that our meteorology team does helps inform our operational practices. And this is about having a system that reacts more quickly when there is a fault. And then a third tool we have for our wildfire mitigation is really increasing the resiliency of our system. And some of those resiliency efforts include those enhanced inspection programs, speeding up correction of conditions and enhanced vegetation management practices. And then increasing resilience can also be accomplished through long-term system investment, such as installing covered conductor. And this long-term investment aims to retrofit the system and protect it against the impacts of incidental contact with power lines, which in turn reduces the risk that the electric line can become a source of a fault or a spark. Now, underlying all of this is engagement, which drives and supports these guiding principles. And this includes engagement with customers, public safety partners, tribal nations, the Utility Commission and Energy Safety, and also collaboration with utilities in California and across the US and Canada. So next slide, please. So just let's talk a little bit about what our service territory looks like in California. And that's shown in blue on the map. And we serve electricity to approximately 45,000 California customers across 11,000 square miles from Del Norte to Modoc counties. And we do that approximately 3,800 miles of distribution and transmission lines. So it's a fairly large area, covers a lot of mountainous and steep area, as you all well know. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at where that high fire risk is, where our baseline risk is. So Pacific Power has implemented modeling tools to support location-specific risk identification to inform our wildfire mitigation programs. And with the deployment of these risk modeling tools, we've identified geographic areas of heightened fire risk in our area. And we call these the high fire risk area, the HFRA. And the HFRA is our baseline risk. And this tells us over time where the heightened risk is in our service territory. And that's shown in purple on the map that you see on the screen. And that's the long-term view based off of years of data. And we made an update to this in 2023, which we implemented in 2024. And we've made no changes since we did that last implementation, that last update. So this high fire risk area is in addition to the Tier 2 and Tier 3 high fire threat districts that the state has defined. And those are shown in green and orange on the map. So taken all together, the high fire threat districts and the high fire risk area comprise about 54% of our service area. So you can see that is a lot of area that is high fire risk. And it is in these areas that Pacific Power deploys its enhanced vegetation management and increases the frequency of asset inspections and also prioritizes system hardening investments that will mitigate the risk of wildfire in the area. So next slide, please. And on this slide, you can see some of our 2024 accomplishments in our service area. So for situational awareness, we've implemented a new public safety power shutoff circuit forecast tool. And this is a tool that helps us, if the conditions indicate that a public safety power shutoff event may be necessary, to quickly identify the circuits that may be impacted by a PSPS and the forecasted timing of the events on those circuits. And this helps us with customer notifications. For situational awareness, we've also continued to build out our network of weather stations, and we have a little over 100 weather stations in our service area. In engagement, our outreach included engaging with community and public safety partners through participation in exercises. And in system resiliency, we continue our program work in vegetation management and equipment inspections. And for system hardening, we continue to build out our overhead distribution lines in areas of heightened fire risk, continued replacement or upgrades of our relays and reclosers, and also the expulsion fuses. And there on the screen, you can see some of the numbers around the miles of overhead lines we hardened last year and fuses replaced, as well as some of the vegetation and equipment inspection statistics. Next slide, please. Now, Pacific Power's approach to situational awareness, which we talked about on that first slide, one of the early slides about one of those three categories, includes monitoring the conditions that can create fire risk. And this monitoring is done by our utility-owned weather stations or other data sources to help us forecast and assess risk and inform real-time decision-making. We perform dynamic risk assessment through situational awareness and weather forecasting that can be done in near real time. And we will have approximately 115 weather stations installed by the end of 2025 that collect and provide data to our meteorologists every 10 minutes to support that operational decision making and their daily risk forecast that we talked about. And the weather data we collect is available to the public on our situational website at pacificpowerweather.com. So you can go to that link on the screen at that website and you can see the weather station data. We are also launching a Wildfire Intelligence Center, which we also call the WIC, for the 2025 fire season. And this is aimed at enhancing our wildfire response and safety. And the WIC team is composed of experts in all hazard and emergency management, as well as wildfire response. And it'll operate from just north of you in Medford, because we know that together that is a region with one of our highest fire risks for the company. And the WIC will provide 24/7 monitoring of wildfire events, as well as timely stakeholder notifications. So next slide, please. And then more on operational practices. So our situational awareness really informs our operational practices. And our approach is that as fire risk escalates, so does our response. And the weather stations and the weather forecasting system and that daily risk forecast that meteorology puts together is used by the company to inform risk-based changes to system operational practices. Like, can we defer non-essential work? Conducting daytime work only where it's feasible, deferring work in windy and otherwise high-risk conditions if possible, driving on designated roads whenever possible, and avoiding doing work on energized equipment where that's feasible. And then risk-based changes also come in the form of alternate protection and control schemes, which we refer to as enhanced safety settings, which will de-energize our lines within fractions of a second if interference is detected, such as a tree branch on the lines. And these settings are enabled across the service territory, well in advance of weather conditions that have historically been related to catastrophic fires. So next slide, please. So as you may be aware, 2024 was a record-breaking year for wildfires in the U.S. And according to the National Interagency Fire Center, there were more than 61,000 fires that burned 8.8 million acres last year. And per CAL FIRE, there were more than 8,000 fires that burned just over 1 million acres in California last year. Pacific Power's emergency management team monitored 16 of those wildfires in our service area last year. And we are constantly monitoring conditions that could cause a spark so we can take steps to keep the public safe through our operational practices. So some of those operational practices could include placing settings on circuits to be more sensitive. So if there's a fault, the power shuts off more quickly, those enhanced safety settings. De-energizing circuits when there's a fire that's too close to our equipment. Or as a last resort, a public safety power shut off when the weather forecast and fuels conditions are forecast to create an extreme fire risk. And when we're making those decisions, we are keeping the safety of first responders, customers, communities, and employees top of mind. So next slide, please. So these wildfire mitigation strategies, while important, do have an impact on reliability. As enhanced safety settings are turned on for circuits, it makes them more sensitive to faults or potential faults like tree branches tapping on lines, and we know that has an impact on customers. And while there were no public safety power shutoffs in 2024, operational practices such as enhanced safety settings and emergency de-energizations did have an impact on customers. And on the map, you can see the location of the 2024 enhanced safety setting outages, and those are in red on the map, and emergency de-energization outages, and those are in blue on the map. So you can see the location of all of those that happened in last year across our service area. And we know those have an impact on customers, and it is disruptive, and sometimes there is little advance notification. So we want to talk to you about what customers can expect in terms of communications if there's enhanced safety setting outage, emergency de-energization, or public safety shutoff. Next slide. So for enhanced safety settings, customers receive a letter or email when their circuits are placed on enhanced safety settings for the season. And then when there is an outage, customers will receive an automated individual outage notification based off your communication preferences for outages, whether that be text, phone, or email. For emergency de-energizations, when possible, potentially impacted customers will receive a pending de-energization notification. So if we have time, we'll notify you that there's a pending de-energization on the way coming. And when the de-energization occurs, impacted customers receive an active de-energization notification. And then impacted customers will also receive additional notifications for longer duration outages based on our activation for an active wildfire. And then for public safety power shutoff, there's a series of communications from multiple sources leading up to a public safety power shutoff event. And then customers will continue to receive updates on a set cadence. So next slide, please. And we'll show you what that cadence looks like. So public safety power shutoff is a tool that is used by utilities as a measure of last resort to reduce the risk of wildfires. And we understand the impact that those PSPS events can have. And at the core of our decision-making and overall PSPS is balancing the risk of conditions surrounding a potential event with the risk created by the de-energization itself, and also communicating with our partners and customers before and throughout the PSPS events. And we coordinate with our public safety partners to activate our community resource centers, or CRCs. And when those are activated, they provide critical services to customers and community members, such as on-site medical support, air conditioning, refrigeration, internet and phone access, and charging stations for other electronic devices. And we also recognize that there is a need to provide additional detailed geographic information of areas impacted by PSPS to our public safety partners. And to meet this need, we've implemented for our partners a secure web-based public safety partner portal that hosts GIS data related to critical infrastructure, like contact information and other known backup generation capabilities. And also on the screen there on the right, you can see the timing for PSPS notifications from a watch that is 48 to 72 hours in advance, all the way through the next watch of 24 to 48 hours to the warning at the 5 to 4 hour mark when we expect to de-energize. And then as we go through the de-energization and restoration and conclusion of it. So we start early with the notification and we continue that notification through the event on a set cadence. So next slide, please. And then our emergency management team leads our response and coordination during wildfires. And to prepare for that response, they work closely with our public safety partners throughout the year in meetings, trainings, and exercises to help with emergency management and safety partners to help understand how to coordinate during an emergency. And also this year, we have stood up to help support our public safety partners, a fire emergency response team. And they are located across our service areas and will work with the public safety partners if there is a wildfire to ensure we're supporting the response appropriately. So next slide, please. Now let's talk about some of our system resiliency work we do to maintain our system, beginning with our equipment inspections and vegetation management. And this is work we perform on a regular basis to reduce the risk of equipment causing a fault or vegetation causing a fault. For equipment management programs, we do an annual safety patrol for all the overhead equipment in our service area. And then we accelerate correction of our inspection findings in the high fire threat district and high fire risk area, depending on the energy release and safety risk. These correction timelines are between 30 to 180 days, depending on the condition found, but imminent threats are addressed immediately. And as we perform annual infrared inspections of our overhead transmission lines interconnected with the high fire threat district and high fire risk area, we also do a biennial inspection of those transmission lines outside of those areas to supplement our other inspection programs. And then for vegetation management, we are performing annual inspections in our high fire threat districts and high fire risk area and perform annual clearing of equipment poles. And last year we cleared over 1,700 poles in our service area. And we'll continue this inspection and vegetation management work in 2025. So don't be surprised if you see our inspectors, line workers, and vegetation crews working in your communities and neighborhoods to help mitigate the risk of wildfire. So next slide. And in addition to these programs, system hardening is prioritized in the high fire risk area and high fire threat districts. And this includes multi-year long-term investment to rebuild lines and replace relays, reclosers, and fuses. And as of the end of 2024, we've completed over 250 miles of overhead cover conductor hardening in our plan. And as part of this program, these lines may be either moved, removed, retrofitted with more resilient materials such as covered conductor, or converted to underground, or a combination. Now, right now, most of the miles we have planned have been identified for retrofitting with covered conductor, but the company plans to continue evaluating each project as it moves through the project pipeline to make sure we're producing a solution that's fit for purpose and reduces risk. And in 2025, we're continuing to implement that program, and our objective is to complete 120 miles by the end of the year. We are also continuing our work on advanced system protection. This includes upgrades or replacements to reclosers, which can detect a fault and clear the fault or shut off the power more quickly to reduce the risk of a spark. So next slide. So let's zoom in to show you where the system hardening project locations are for this year. So the first map on the top left shows you the hardening work we're doing near Crescent City and areas north and northeast of Happy Camp. The second map on the bottom left shows the planned hardening work we're doing on circuits around and north of Fort Jones. And then on the third map on the right are the circuits mostly along I-5 from Mott north to near Gazelle. And I think these zoom-ins give you a really good idea of the effort it takes to upgrade a circuit. So we're used to seeing, lines and straight lines, maybe down the street. And that's very true, but circuits will wind in and out of neighborhoods and up and down roads. So you can see that weaving makes it complex to do. Next slide. Now, turning to some of our outreach activities and work our emergency management team does with public safety partners. So our emergency management staff is deployed throughout our service area, and they meet regularly with our public safety partners. And they also participate in partner trainings and exercises when requested. So last year, they participated in Modoc County training and tabletop exercises. And we've also increased access to situational information through the development of our public safety portal, like we talked about. And then the new Wildfire Intelligence Center and Fire and Emergency Response Managers will help provide more in-depth information and coordination with impacted partners before, during, and after events. So next slide, please. And some other outreach we do with stakeholders. With the tribal nations, we share wildfire safety information with their media and publications. And we've also brought on a new tribal liaison to lead consultation and outreach for with the tribes for areas like wildfire mitigation and other areas of interest to them. And then our regional business managers communicate with their customers and provide wildfire information in advance of the wildfire season. And when there are outages due to enhanced safety settings or emergency de-energizations, they are also talking with their customers and providing advance notification if they can. And our regional business managers are also really involved with their communities and really play an important role in answering questions and sharing information in informal settings like local service meetings, as well as attending city council and county commission meetings. We have also brought on an access and functional needs program manager to coordinate internally and externally to amplify messaging about our access and functional programs for access and functional needs customers. And this manager brings an emergency resilience lens to these programs and looks for ways to remove barriers for customers to access those programs. The next slide. And then for communications and outreach, Pacific Power takes a multi-pronged approach throughout the year to ensure that wildfire preparedness and educate our customer and our communities about the wildfires. We also work to get key information out into the communities we serve, and we begin that communication in April, and it continues through September. This includes information shared through social media, TV, and our radio campaigns, brochures and flyers for customers, a couple of which you can see on the screen there as an example, and messages included in customer bills. We also host webinars like the one we're having today. And then throughout the year, we also have additional information on our website, which you can also see here on the screen along with those flyer examples. So next slide, please. And while Pacific Power is focused on what we can do to make sure our system is safe and resilient, there are also things that you can do to prepare for emergencies and reduce the impact of wildfire. And I know living in California, you all are very safety focused and really have a really fine-tuned intent about what you can do to prepare for wildfires. So you all know that we all have a role to play in this. So I think the first step is to make sure that you have updated or verified your contact information with Pacific Power. And so you can go online to your account at pacificpower.net/account or call the number on the screen and make sure that your contact information is updated with us. And this is really important because we use this contact information when we are making enhanced safety setting, emergency de-energization, and public safety and power shutoff notifications to customers. And that's the best way to stay informed about a potential public safety power shutoff event. And then also sign up for text alerts to get notified about outages. Again, go online and make sure that you have signed up for those alerts. And then make sure you've created a defensible space around your home. We know that many of you live in really beautiful areas that are surrounded by a lot of vegetation. And we know that the way in which that vegetation is maintained around a home can really mitigate the risk of wildfire. And then make sure to update your emergency plan and supplies. It's important to be prepared and have an emergency plan any time of year. So next slide, please. We also want you to know some ways Pacific Power can help mitigate the impact of wildfire on our customers. And if you or someone in your household may have a medical condition that could be aggravated by an outage, you may qualify for a medical baseline program. And Pacific Power has also implemented a public safety power shutoff mitigation program for customers with medical needs to automatically receive additional notification of those PSPS events. But to be eligible, customers must be enrolled in our medical baseline program. We also offer 2 backup power programs to customers. First, we offer a backup power rebate program to all residential California customers. And this rebate to customers is for qualified generator and backup battery purchases is $300, with an additional rebate of $500 for customers who are also enrolled in the CARE or medical baseline programs. And second, there's a free portable battery program. And to be eligible for that, customers must be enrolled in the medical baseline and California alternate rates for energy CARE programs. And you can find information on those programs and more at pacificpower.net/accessibility. So we've created a one-stop hub for that information for you. The next slide. And with that, I will hand it back over to Hallie, who will start our Q&A portion. So thank you very much.